Welcome back, and thank you for joining the Serving My Master podcast. And thank you for joining us for our third season. Now that we have both the background of the history of the creation of the world, of the universe, of the humankind, and of Klal Yisrael as a nation of servants, and we also have the understanding of how the Torah is the ultimate guide that could lead us to salvation, that could elevate us to our highest opportunities and to our ultimate destination. We will try in this season to approach some of the conventional ideas that people have and try to see how we can look at them with a vision of service and how we can look at them with the perspective of being a servant and what that means. We will start this season and today's episode with a word that means a lot of things to a lot of people, but also seems to be something that either keeps on getting away from us or maybe, just maybe, we just don't understand it. And that word is happiness. Of course, now that we have the background and understanding that the Torah is the ultimate guide for everything in this world, it makes it a lot easier for us to understand that if we really want to understand something, we must go look what the Torah tells us about it. And interestingly enough, the Torah actually has two types of happiness, two words for happiness. Sasain and Simcha. One, a persistent state of happiness, and the other, a certain type of happiness that only happens occasionally. And this is something that is actually quite simple to understand. If one looks, of course, there are certain times in our lives, whether it's a wedding, the birth of a child, and so forth, where we have a type of happiness that is what some might call a temporary happiness, or a happiness that comes with an occasion to it. And then there is a happiness where we can see some people seem to be happy people. Some people seem to have a consistent state of happiness. Let's try to understand where this happiness comes from and how these two connect. If we look in the Torah, we see that first and foremost, one has an obligation to always be happy. The Torah tells us that chas v'shalom and rachman al-litzlan, there are incredible curses on someone who does not fulfill the obligations written in the Torah with happiness. It doesn't say that the curses will come for someone who does not fulfill them, but rather for someone who does fulfill them, but not with a happiness. An incredible thing that we need to understand. And maybe even more incredible, understand the fact that the Torah expects us to be happy always, without exception. And of course, we know that there are times in our lives that we're supposed to be sad, we're obligated to be sad. So how is it that we need to be happy always? In order to answer this, of course, we go to our sages, to Chazal, who tell us and explain to us in words that we can understand what the Torah wants from us. Chazal tell us, Ein simcha ka'ataras asfeikis. There is no happiness like the answers to doubt. Like knowing that there is no doubt, that there is no question. And of course, we can get this all together in a beautiful image if we use a perspective of service. If one understands what Chazal mean by saying that there is no happiness like no doubt whatsoever, it becomes quite clear that the only moments in life where we have no doubt is when we know that we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. When we have that feeling, knowledge, and understanding, in this moment I am doing exactly what I and the world was created for. And when we have that feeling, that is the ultimate happiness. There is no question in our mind. There is no doubt in our mind on what we might have, should have, could have, would have. We're absolutely clear. That is happiness. And of course, we can understand now how the two types of happiness connect. You see, when we have a moment, an occasion like a wedding or the birth of a child, there is a moment of happiness, there is a moment of clarity where we see the Yad Hashem, where we clearly see the miracles that Hashem is creating for us, where we clearly see how Hashem's hand is in everything that happens in our life. And in those moments, there is a temporary clarity that honestly doesn't even belong to this world. It is a clear clarity that we can only see momentarily, and that takes us to another level of happiness. But like we discussed in our previous season, this is an idea that we see consistently throughout the Torah, that Hashem sometimes gives us the chance to sample something, to taste what we can reach. In those times, in those moments, Hashem gives us the opportunity to taste what it means to really feel and see the Yad Hashem in everything, to really have no doubts, to really have no human bias, to really have no questions and thoughts of our own, and only think about the fact that Hashem is here with us, Hashem is telling us what to do, how to do it, and so forth. And when we have that clarity, we can reach an incredible level of happiness. And of course, we can take that along for a consistent state of happiness by knowing and remembering that we're here to be servants, and therefore, whenever we're in doubt, we can purify our brains and we can clear out those doubts by remembering I'm here as a servant, and therefore my only question is, as a servant, what am I supposed to do? And if I have the answer for that, all the doubts go away. And with that comes an incredible level of peace and happiness. Because ein simcha k'ataras hasveikis. And of course, indeed, even in times when we're supposed to act out in a sad manner, whether it's a Tisha B'Av or other moments, we can still also have that level of Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha, serving Hashem with that state of happiness, with that state of knowing that whilst I'm sitting on the floor crying about the Churban Abayis, I have a certain state of happiness that I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that knowledge is the highest level of happiness a person can reach. And indeed, that is why the Pasuk tells us that the curses, Rahman al-Litzlan, written in the Torah is for someone who indeed does the obligations written in the Torah, but does not do it with a state of happiness, does not do it with a state of clarity. I'm doing this because Hashem told me to do it, and I'm crystal clear about it. Someone who has questions, someone who has doubts, Rahman al-Litzlan, that is not service. The service expected from us, and the service that can take us to our destination, the service that can elevate us and make us into happy people on a consistent basis, is based on clarity. It's based on strengthening our loyalty and faithfulness to our master, the master of the world, by remembering that all we're here to do is to serve him at every given moment. And that, and only that, can give us the clarity, the consistency of knowing in this moment, I am doing exactly what the world and I as a human being and I as a servant was created for. Thank you for joining me today. And may we all merit and be zoiche to have a consistent level of happiness where we have no doubts. And it is clear in our mind what is expected of us by our master, the master of the world. Thank you for joining me, and have a wonderful day.